to arm knit a chunky throw, and just for demonstration purposes, I'm gonna use a much thinner wool / yarn. And then also I'm gonna make it much smaller so that way it goes by quicker and you can kind of grasp the whole concept of how to do it. The way I'm gonna show you is not your standard arm knitting method, because typically you would cast them on your arm and you would kind of continue and keep them on your arm the whole time, which disables you to be able to really do anything else. The way I'm showing you, I prefer this method because you can lay it out all on the table and break away as much as you need to and start again. You just have to kind of keep tabs and remember where you left off at. But it's super easy. I took about 45 to 50 collective minutes to make Charlotte's baby throw, and hers ended up being about 3.5 by 3.5 feet. So for this project, whenever you do yours, just cast on as many stitches as you need to, or take away as many as you need to. And you should be able to start over if you mess up somewhere, because this is fairly easy. But I hope you find this video helpful, and let me know in the comments if you were able to successfully make one, and show me your work. Thanks. Okay, so to start, the kind of yarn I'm using is called Yarn Bee, and it's Runway Hit Ivory. It's 9 ounces and 26 yards. So if you like this one, this is one that I got at Hobby Lobby for $9.99, but they had a 50% off sale on yarn, so this is it. Again, this is not typically the size of the standard wool that you would use for this big chunky throw blankets that's really popular right now, but you can use it all the same if you wanted to. But for this particular project, this is the one I bought for it. So to start, what you're gonna do is you're gonna count your stitches that you're casting. So on the big chunky wool that's like that big around, like you'd count your whole forearm as a stitch. But in this case, because it's a fraction of that size, you're gonna count like about half of that as a stitch. So this is a stitch for me. So first though, I wanna make sure I leave about at least 6 inches extra, because I'll tie that in at the end. But so 6 inches extra. If you're using the big chunky one, the big wool that's that round, you'll want to leave about 10 to 12 inches extra. Okay, so for this one, here's 1 stitch, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 stitches. So this is called the working tail. And what I'm doing is I'm casting my stitches. And then this is like the rest of the bulk of the yarn on that one skein. So here's where I'll tie my first stitch. So I'm doing this. And so my loops for this, because I want it tighter, I'm gonna make a much smaller loop than you would if you're using that chunky wool. With the chunky wool, your loop for your stitch might want to be about this size, where you can put them onto your arm. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to pretend like this is the big chunky wool real quick, so that way you get an understanding of what I'm talking about. So if it's the big chunky one, you make your loop like that. So that's about a good size that I can add onto my arm like this. And you'll cast them on your arm, but you're gonna end up taking them off, so that way you can do the rest of the stitching. So we're pretending again that this is the big chunky wool. So here's 1 stitch, and then you're gonna take your tail, working tail, you're gonna loop it, and you're gonna pull through. Like that. So take your tail, you make a loop like that. So you make a loop, and then you pull the other side through and tighten. Like that. So that's 3 stitches already right there. Take your loop like that. This side, you'll pull it through and tighten it. It's 4 stitches. See that? Pulling it through. There's 5 stitches. So you see how it's making that pretty cast right there? So that's if you are using that big chunky wool that I'm talking about, the one that weighs a lot. But I'm gonna undo all of these because I'm making a much smaller one. So I'm gonna start over for you. So I'm leaving about 6 inches to spare. And then here's 1 stitch, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then make my loop. There's my first stitch. It's gonna be about this small because I like mine tighter and because I'm using the thinner, skinnier yarn, okay? So again, here's your bulk, here's your working tail. And because it's a skinnier one, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use my fingers instead of my arm, like I showed you earlier. So here's one. There's 2. Do you see I'm pulling it through like that? See that? There's 3. There's 4, and you want to make sure that all your stitches, the loop part of it, is about the same size, so that way there's no discrepancies between each little loop when you start knitting more. There's 4. There's 5. And then I'm just gonna do one more to make 6. Okay. So there's that. And then now I'm gonna take them off of my finger. And I have that laid out right there like that. And again, if you're using that bigger, chunkier, thicker wool that I just showed you when I was doing it on my arm, at this point is where you take it off your arm. Now I want to remind you that I'm not making a full throw for this video. I'm just gonna make like a little pot holder for this demonstration. So for your throw, depending on how many stitches you want, that's about the size of how big your blanket's gonna be. So because of the size of what I made my stitches and the size of the yarn, my pot holder is gonna be about, you know, the standard size of a pot holder. And that was 6 stitches here. But if you want, you know, double the size, you would double the stitches, right? Makes sense? So here we have this. I'm gonna leave this end here, okay? And then now what I'm gonna do, so here's my working tail. This is that end, or the beginning of it. So now what I'm gonna do is with this end, I'm gonna move this way. Okay. So with this end, I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna feed it through and pull it up through like that. So I've casted my stitches here. So this is how long it's gonna be. So now I'm starting to actually stitch through. So there's that. And again, you wanna make sure you keep them all about the same size. Okay. See what I'm doing here? I'm going through each loop and feeding it behind it, like so, and pulling it up and through, like that. And you can kind of already start to see like that chain develop there. So now once I get to my end of this, I'm gonna come back through this way. So you go back and forth like that. So now I'm gonna come back through this side. And what makes it easier for me to remind me what direction I'm going, I'll take this yarn here and lay it out this direction. So that way I know I'm gonna work this way now. So I've done this one. So, like I was talking about earlier, I like my knit to be tighter where it braids in very tight, but some people have like big holes in theirs, and that's because their loop size is much bigger. So because I like mine this size, I'm making mine much smaller of a loop. I need a glass of wine. Is it too early for wine? It's never too early for wine. So now, to cast it off, what you're gonna do is you're going to take your last loop stitch that you just did, okay? And then you're gonna take this, take two loops together, there's two stitches there, And then you're gonna take this end and come through this way and make another loop like that. And then bring it over to the next one. You see what I'm doing there? Take the next one, bring it together. Next one. Actually, let me start over, because earlier I'd cut off what I thought was about the size that I needed to do, but this isn't long enough because you want to leave about, at least, like I said, 6 inches excess. And again, if it's that thicker wool that is about this thick, you want to leave about 10 to 12 inches longer. So this is not enough. I shouldn't have cut it earlier. My bad. So I'm gonna undo what I just did there. Now I'm gonna cast it off. So again, I'm taking 2 loops, okay, and feeding it through. Oh wait, my bad, this way. Take 2 loops, feeding it through. This way. 2 loops, feed it through. 2 loops, feed it through. 2 loops, feed it through. You see that? And then last loop here, feed it through. See, so this is what I have now. And what I'm gonna do is, with this extra loop here, I'm gonna take this end and feed it through and pull and tighten it. That, right? And I tightened this knot already. And then I'm gonna turn it around. See how pretty that is? I love that. Turn it around, and then this is a little too long for my liking, so I'm just gonna cut it about here, and I'm gonna come back around and just kind of feed it through. And then same thing with this, pull it to tighten, and then you're gonna come and feed it through one of the loops that you find. I mean, it doesn't really matter which one, and tighten it. So you're pulling to tighten, and then you're gonna go and feed it through. this is a little too much for me. And kind of just hide it on in there. So this is a very tiny, tiny version of what it would look like. See that? And this is the back. Cool, right? Pretty easy. Obviously, don't try to do it as fast as I was doing. Take your time, make sure you're not missing any loops. That way you end up with something much prettier, but again, this is for a demo. There it is.